This is ABotten for the Workforce and Labor Relations Management course with instructor Melissa Houston. First, what is happening? What's being done with ethics? So first, the unions have been a critical part of bettering the working conditions in the U.S. and have paved the way for many of the fair and ethical treatments many of us now take for granted. Economic advocacy, the unions are taking time, people, legal filings, and they need money to run these unions, and they need a way to collect the funds to pay for the operations. Workplace democracy would be next. We'll be speaking about maintaining the rights the unions have fought for, protecting employees and constitutional rights in the process. It's been more and more part of the conversation. And finally, we'll discuss social justice. Working to protect the rights is a social issue, working for the basic issues to be retained, but also fighting for more social issues. Economic advocacy. Unions are in the business to get better pay, better, safer, and more fair working conditions and for its members. In order to do so, the people who actually negotiate and push for these practices deserve to be compensated. There may also be legal fees for the organization needing to file the suit against them. No one can be forced to join the union as a condition of employment, but sometimes the union covers members who don't pay dues. And when this is the case, those protected employees pay what's called fair share fees. And these fees just cover the basic costs of a union's representation and costs of operating a union. If fair share fees weren't collected, unions would shut down because all the people would want a free ride. Fair share fees cover collective bargaining and contract administration, but not the political or ideological advocacy. But paying for the fair share fees doesn't put you out of the frame. These employees are also to receive the same higher wages that members have. Workplace democracy. So the Bill of Rights has never been applied in the workplace. Employers have been able to maintain control, stripping constitutional rights and modern day rights to organize and do unions are also ignored by management. Our freedom to be protected from unreasonable search and seizures. That ends at the front door. Our freedoms of speech and assembly are virtually non-existent while at work, unless you have a union. So the Workplace Democracy Act would make it easier for workers to organize free from freedom of intimidation, allowing them to organize a union through a majority sign-up process. It's going to be easier for workers to get a first contract, ensuring that companies cannot prevent a union from forming by denying a first contract. Employers would be required to begin negotiating within 10 days of receiving the first request from a newly formed union. Eliminating free riding, repealing 14B of the Taft-Hartley Act, allows 28 states to pass legislation eliminating the ability of unions to collect fair share fees from those benefiting from union contracts and activities, undermining the union's representation of workers. Ensuring that employees can no longer avoid responsibility and prevent workers from organizing. This is designating certain workers, independent contractors, supervisors, or through franchisee arrangements by modifying, modernizing, and expanding the definition of an employer and employee relations. Restoring union members' freedom of speech to take action to pressure clients of suppliers and companies opposing the unions, including secondary boycotts and picketing. And finally, curbing the union busters and their power. So companies would be required to disclose anti-union propaganda they disseminate to workers, including funding of third-party anti-union consultants who would have to register and be law-abiding. Employers would also be prohibited from forcing the workers to attend the campaign activities that are unrelated to the employee's job duties. And social justice. A strong union movement requires broadening the fight beyond the specific demands of one union to class-wide or social justice demands, which includes traditional bread and butter issues. Labor activists are looking at building a strong movement, fighting beyond specific demands, but working towards social good, including the bread and butter issues. Having unions that are involved in the social movements, they will make a lasting impact. So, for instance, Occupy Wall Street and groups of political activists are working through social movements, looking at unions as a way to win. So, for instance, utilizing social justice is how the teacher unions will survive. The only way to real progress will be made for the teachers and their students is utilizing the communities which they teach. So often contractual issues are social justice issues. Teachers' workplace impacts the learning environment of the students. Teachers must be ready to stand with the parents and students if they want contracts that they deserve. This type of strength and activism ensures that the public sector jobs, like those in schools and hospitals, are working towards social change, because when contracts cut into the working conditions, they cut into the living situation conditions. So affecting personal situations, and to be a successful union, struggles must move beyond the narrow constraints of individual workplaces to make links with social movements and fight for our interests as a class, a social movement. Union not only endorses social justice outside of the school, but it also exists as a social movement itself. This ultimately is the central argument of the social justice unionism. So finally, ways to eliminate unethical behavior in collective bargaining. So employers can clearly define who employees are. Employees, contractors, temporary employees, independent employees. Employers must ensure negotiations are being submitted and responded to in a timely manner. So they can't sit there and wait till the last minute to start preparing and ask for extensions every time. They need to continue to actively be in the negotiations. They need to be working to help come to a grand solution and compromise. The transparency in economic proposals, including the employees' wages, their hours, and other terms, including who employees are, what titles those employees would have, versus who are the independent contractors or outside vendors that work closely with the organization and maybe work as like a second-hand distributor. Like really being transparent in who are the employees, what are their wages, what are their hours, and any terms of their existing contract that need to be negotiated. And then on the other hand, unions need to understand the full conditions employees are experiencing from work and their personal experiences. So what work conditions are poor, and what personal conditions? So are the benefit packages just not living up to the expectations of the union? Unions need to utilize the legal teams they have. They also need to educate negotiators to positively represent the union. They want to make sure that they are being represented in a positive light, being assertive, being aggressive, being good negotiators. However, they need to ensure that they have the positive viewpoint, so that they're recognized as someone who is authoritative, who it does have ethical standards and works with morals. Allowing sufficient time to respond with employers with thoughtful responses. So they need to really take into consideration all aspects of what is being counter negotiated, and ensure that they are stating that parts of it are working and parts of it are unacceptable, and renegotiate then. But really giving themselves time to think and come up with those thoughtful responses rather than just denying everything. So those are my plans for eliminating the unethical behavior in collective bargaining. Are my resources of how I found out my information.